page Taf Shin. Let me put some light on this so I can see this better. Bring this over here. Focus. So let's start. We need to read this again because where we're going to go is to number Lamed Hey and number Lamed Vav. And so we're going to see what those have to say. So he said, Rebbe Perish Talmud, and you'll remember this as we're going through this. And Shabir Kan Inyan Vav is Patcha Ba'achra. That particular statement of Rebbe Shimon, the Oz Vav Ku Teferes, Zeranpin. Okay, so we went through some of this. In the B'shasa Iver, Sosim Zeranpin as Imei Ima. So he closes it up. V'hu b'sod Vav HaSosim Sad Small the Os Base the Ima. V'oz Asis Ima b'sod Mem Stuma. So this whole view of this, of how this works or what's about, so in the Tikuni says, Obishas later Zeranpin, Oz Niftach Oz Mem Stuma, V'zechu Inyan Vav is Patcha Ba'achra. That's the concept there, is that it opens up in another. Why? Ki Oz Vav the Zeranpin Poseach as Ima. So on one hand, it closes up Ima. That's what it seems like. And then on the other hand, it opens it up, and Ima is the Achra. So it opens up, that's the idea, he's working on the phrase is Patach. So that it gets opened up. So who's the Achra? It opens up Ima. But on the one hand, he also said that it closes her up, Shehu Mem Stuma, which Ima is a Mem Stuma, and I thought the idea which becomes a Mem Stuma when she's impregnated and Zeranpin is inside. Okay, so let's go a little bit more. He said, "Behid b'shasa iver." Now, during gestation, nimsa Zeranpin b'soch mei ima ve'ena oma ve'emsa, but he's down in the middle. V'atacha b'shas later Zeranpin, but now when Zeranpin is born, nimsa Zeranpin b'makomo shehu kava emsoy. So therefore, Zeranpin is now going to move its right place. So somehow the shift in the nature of the womb. So I'm assuming just that the relative, where we see the letter bet on, on its, what would you say, on its side, with an open side, being closed up and made into a mem, doesn't necessarily mean that it's like right left the way we see right left. At any rate, it closes it up and makes it a womb, but also opens it up at the same time. Well, at the time of Leda. And it goes into the middle and moves out. So this is the idea, moves into a straight line, or it's going to go to the b'shas ledaza holik Zeranpin, which is the dodi, the makomo into its place, which is in the middle line, shehu kava yosher be'emsa. So we read through number lamed daled. It was kind of, I don't know what we saw, a lot of different things there. And he's going to go into a place where I really not 100% familiar with what he's talking about. So let's get to it. V'hine az malvish Zeranpin as Ima. So there we say that Zeranpin is clothing Ima. And Ima, he says, is Nikros Botzina de Cardenusa. She's called the Botzina de Cardenusa. So I found this contradictory as I read it then. I read some for later. But this contradictory because we said that the Botzin and Botzin Kadinushin is the Kavamida that apportions all the different aspects of the spheros of the Zad. Could be that's Ima, but it just sounds like the Botzin of the Kardanusa is Ima. So that's where we're at right now, and so now I have to try to figure this out because there's a reference here to Gophris, burning fire, burning sulfur. So Gophris is the same thing as fire and brimstone. So that's the most I know about it. He says, Rebbe Ferish Talmud Sham over there, so I'm going to look at it there, and he gives a site reference, should be here Bezecha Beis Pirushim. Fi Beis Girsos. Now he says actually there's two different ways to read this. He says the first one, the Ima Kashura Ba'aba, so she is tied to Abba. Kashal Heves like a fire, Hakashura Begafris, which is tied to burning sulfur. So I'm not really familiar with how sulfur burns, but we do have the inyan of Lot and the what happened in Sodom. So but anyway, he wants to analogize that the relationship with Ima Kashura Ba'aba, where she is the way she's tied together, is like fire and brimstone. Base, that's one. The Ima Yesh is Kadrus. Now I still look up the word Kadrus. Kadrus means darkness or something like that. Besod Bina Dinin Arimino. So I saw the word gloom. I don't know exactly what Kadrus is, but that's, I know you do. But so we're going on. So that's what it is. So this is what it says about the boats in the Gardanusa. So we're talking about Ima. He says Ima is the boats in the Gardanusa, and there are two different gersas of whatever it is. It's like fire and brimstone. Is that understandable that Abba and Ima have a relationship like that? The fire to brimstone. Okay, I don't know. But so how is it zer anpin poseach tahainu Ima? Now he opens up Ima, and he says what? V'amar bebutzina de kardanusa shuhu she'ima. That Mima is also called bechuna b'shem zeh b'kol makom. She's always called the botzina de kardanusa. So I've seen it in different places, and he pointed out too. He yesh the call base the schals but bezoa. There's two different ways to read this. Nusik echad, where you had this idea the botzina the kardanusa in pirusho. Its pirush is this: Hu nur shel gofris. It's the fire or the flares of fire that's coming out of sulfur, burning sulfur. Vanusach acher. Who boats into the Gardanusa pirish nur shel shachar. Shachar is darkness or gloom, like that. So these two, one is that it's a fire. The other one is that it's gloomy. V'hine lefi nusach harishon shuhu gafris. Hatamhu, the reason they're called lovers. It's just hard for me to hear the metaphor if it's talking about fire, but that's what it is anyway. He says they're called lovers, the Laela, the upper lovers. The parshin, the alma that never separate, just like the Haim Olam b'devekas gadol. So he says that's the nature of the fire that's associated, I think he's saying, but the fire that's associated with sulfur. That the light that comes off of this gafris ain't a dime of the shar haor. It's not like any other light. Why? Because the light, say for example, he says he's talking about light. He doesn't say heat. He says the light that comes off of a burning coal. If you blow on it a little bit, you can blow away the light that comes out of it from it. He doesn't say you blow away the heat. He says you could put, I guess it sounds like you put the light out, but it's not that you put it out, you just blow it away. I think it would come back. But I don't know, but let's say, but that's the nature of the light, or the light, it says light. That is generated from a coal is not the same way with the light that generates from gafris. For the coal that's burning of sulfur, you can't separate the light from it. Now, this is a metaphor. I'm just trying to think. He's using the word light. If he said heat, I could understand it. That's the way I like to understand it. Call hasfiros agadushos. So all he says was call hasfiros are like a flame that's coming out of coals. It's tied to coals. Hatiferes and Malchus, those two, Kama pamim em zivugim shava. There's sometimes, many times that I don't know what he means by shava, but it's just their zivugim isn't exactly the way they're supposed to be. Now I don't know what that phrase meant. Kama pamim ein zivugim shava. Now, does that mean that we have, sometimes that they go to the Chek of Abba Ve'ima, there's a yichud takes place there? Or does it mean that they're attempting to make which is called a yichud ach ba'ach? I don't know if that's what he means, because he says, Kama pa'amem many times, ein zivugim shava. Or maybe shava means it's not worth anything, I don't know. V'yecholim atachtonim is a result of that. So therefore, as a result of that zivug that's not shaveh, he says that as a result of that, the other side could get a hold of the chafetz. But he wants to say, contrast that to up above, to penimi to them, which is Abba ve'ima, who's so shal cheves hakashur begafris. That's the fire that can't good. He says one place he says fire, that's fire. Another place he says or. So I don't know if you or the fire. I don't know how we move them around, or we can. Who's so shall cheves hakashur begafris. That's the concept of that fire that is always a part of gafris. The pirish habeis shuhu meloshin kadros is talking about gloominess or chakros. Ki bebina dinim misa'arin ad kan. So exactly what we got there, I'm not really sure, but we certainly did take us into different worlds. Okay, so let's go on from that place. How are we doing here? We have plenty of time. Let's go to the next one. We'll read behind number Lamed Hey up above. See, he says, so, well, let's read behind Lamed Dalet. V'hine oz malvish zer anpin as ima, she clothes her, hanikras botinida kardanusa. So we just went through a whole lot of different ideas of how we can understand ima as the botinida kardanusa. And exactly, there's something missing over there, exactly how this ties. Then he said, "V'nai the ima mislavshim b'silk zer anpin." So the nai of ima now goes inside of zer anpin, and when the nai, now this is another view. So the first way that I understood that what he's saying is that the vav somehow like it's the you go yud k. He showed us previously the idea of the dot inside of the base. First comes the yud, which is the dot, then comes the base that surrounds the dot, and then comes a vav that seals up the dot inside of it seals it up to a mem stuma, and then the gestation could take place. So let's go back, but here's another view. Is this another view? What is this? He says, "V'nai de even mislavshim b'silk zer anpin." So there is a case. So what happens then is that the nai of ima goes inside of zer anpin, and this is another way where we say umachas es pischa, and she closes up her opening. So kisui erva, which is a concept of kisui erva. So she goes inside of zer anpin, and her erva is now closed up inside of zer anpin. Is that what he means? Ki'inishin is bar b'sifra d'tzniuta, and this has been explained as we're in the sifra d'tzniuta. Na'el, he says what in Sof Perak Aleph, he said v'zel d'shono asa miftika. This key comes the kolul b'shis that has 6 would you say notches in it. A makasi pischa ein shaman closes up that opening. So here, what's really got me confused about this, I guess I should read it out, but I want to say the idea is that in one case we're saying the vav comes and closes up the womb. In another case, he says that the nai of ima goes inside of that vav. So that's part of the action, goes inside of it, and that's also called, and so in the first case when the vav comes, seals up the base, becomes a mem. That is a sealing it up. But then there's another one. That's what it looks like to me. V'zecher she'amar kan b'botzin the kardanusa L'mchasia pischa ein sham. So he said the butin of the kardanusa, we're going to cover up her opening. He said this is like lashon erva. So it's a little confusing to me, but I know that the way that this goes is that it builds a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to understand it better. Let me see if I can get a better focus here. So he says number lamed vav. That's we're now down on number lamed vav. Rabbi Pirish Atal Nisham. So over there he says in side reference Lashon Bedelog. He skipped a little bit, but here it is. Vine noide ki hateferes hu mekaseh pesach abina. Shu makom torif, which is I'm thinking he's meaning that this is the place at the bottom, and that's the place where you sign on a get, something like that. Or is it? I really forget. Is it around the boundaries of the get? So Makom the Torah Shamarno La'el, we said up above, which is what is the Torah over there? It is actually the nine, her nine. So he closes up her nine. Who Mikasa Pesach Abina, which he says is her nine. That is when it's in his regular place, which is in the middle. But when he's inside of the womb, and so therefore it's the idea that her erva should not be revealed. Because if we're going to call her Bina, Rabbi SIFRA did some use of the Cholon. He said this will be explained a little bit further on. So Masha Amra B'Sifra Ditzniut, this is what it says. The ale. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. Shachat the Feres closes up the opening of Ima. Now, is this talking about the same opening? I mean, this is what his idea was, is that the vav of the Yud K vav comes and seals up the bet. So is that what we're talking about? The Sifra Tzniut of the El Shahat Teferes Mekasa Pischa opens that, closes it out, is up. Is that what it's talking about? Mash Amar Khan the Makasi Pischa, where it says like that to cover up her opening. With Son Lob is there Anpin La'achar Leda, after he's born. Choluk the Makomo, he goes to his proper place, which is the middle line. So Mash Amarnu La'el, according to what we said up above. Now he's in his place, he's in the middle. Oz Maskil ha parts of Shalo Benai Deima. So he says then his parts of begins, which is his Kesser, begins with the entry of the Nai Deima, or it's at the same level as Nai Vina because it's inside of him. When he's in the situation of the Mo'ima, he's in the womb. Oz ein pesach shalom shu nai shalom maluvash. Then it's not inside a zeranpin. So here we have a progression of the vav that seals up the womb, and then there is no real relationship with the nai of ima to that vav. But then the vav is going to move into the middle for Leda. And at that point, the vav is going to be inside. That is, let me get this right. The nai of ima will be inside of the vav. Something like that. So you have to understand. Let me get a little drink here. So the stem is the stima, the shas ibor, so that closed up, particularly at the time that ibor is taking besod mem stuma, which is the secret of the mem stuma. Lo chava bebechinas kisui erva. That's not the same thing as the concept of kisui erva. Kisui erva takes place when Zer Anpin is in the line, the middle line, to move out, and during the birth process. Ki hu rak stima penimis, because he's only a stima that is, I don't know, lo choy bebechinas kisui erva ki im rak stima penimis. He's just closing the inside up. He's making inside. But at that time, he's really more like a gilui erva. I don't really hear the metaphor there yet. Stima the kneses nai the iba bezer anpin. So this stima that we're talking about of the entering of the nai the iba bezer anpin, hubabuchinas kizui erva. That's the one that's the kizui erva. But the other one is not the kizui erva. It's a gilui of the erva, because he's making it possible for ima to be whole, and I don't know. I'm not sure why it would be gilui erva. I'm in a little trouble with that one. So the fact that she comes in and closes him up, that is the kisui erva. Kizer anpin malvish as called nai the ima, because he clothes all of her nai. Her nai includes the area of her erva. That's the best I can make out of that. All new ideas, but I think that as we go through this a little bit more, they might straighten this out. We have like 6 minutes. Let's try to take a shot at number Dalit. It's another set of ideas. So that one really twisted us around by the movement of the Vav. I was disturbed that to find the Botzin de Kartanusa as Ima, because I see that it could be called the Kavamida. So over here, maybe he's going to say something else about it. He says, Rei Bahadras Melech, number Dalet says, Shabir Kan Bezelashono. Vod is Patach Ba'achra, Achra Hu Botzin de Kardanusa. So the Vav opens up there. Hanizker La'el, we talked about, which is Bina. Okay, another statement, the same statement. V'oz Vav Romes the Zer Anpin, B'shorsha Elyon, B'shorsha Elyon. That means in the Rosh of Eric Anpin, that Vav. Nabakasia Pischa, to close up her opening, the Ima, Sheniknasim Netzachot Yisod Shalah, Barosha. So how does he close it up? Because now her bottom is swallowed into his head, the Zer Anpin. Now that follows a little bit around the reading that we had in the, who were we reading? The Talmud. So he said, Shalo Barosha the Zer Anpin la'as los molchim, to make him molchim. So that's what has to happen. But that also closes up that place, Ad Kan. Bira Devarim Haindach al direction is boyer la'el, like we said already, he said in the previous note. Be'inyan he is patcha ba'achra. He says, Ayin Sham, the Zenhu Inyan Vav is patcha ba'achra. Like I said before, I still have problem understanding the hey is patcha ba'achra. I think it means it opens up from a hey to a hey aleph. It has something to do with that. Never really got that clear. It's hazy a little bit for me. He said, so we had some good definition on that. Those Vav Nechalamas, the Eric Anpin, that hidden Vav, which is inside of Eric Anpin, Niftachas v'nisgala b'makom acher, it opens itself up out of that hidden place in Zer Anpin and shows itself in another place. Shows up in another place, let's say. Behind the Be'oz Vav Ilor the Butzini de Kardanusa. That is this Vav that has what to do with the Butzini de Kardanusa, which is Ima. Shuhu Shorsha Elyon Shel Zer Anpin Begevuras the Das the Ima. And where does it come from, he says? It comes from the Gevuras the Das the Ima. Let's have to read this again. So we understand that the Gevuras the Das the Ima is the left side, the left of the middle of Ima. But what exactly we're saying? He said, B'hainu, he said, so the Vav, let's go back to the Oz Vav HaNe'alamis, the Eric Anpin, Nifteches, and the Nizgalis, B'makom Acher, which is what? B'hainu, B'oz Vav Ilor the Butzin de Kardanusa. So in other words, looking at this Vav, it's going to go into Ima, Shehu Shorsha Elyon Shel Zer Anpin, and this Vav we're talking about, Begavur the das the ima, and it comes out, the shorsh zer anpin comes from the gavur the das the ima. Shu shorsh elyon shel zer anpin begavur the das the ima. Maybe he means manifest in the gavur the das the ima. Kamo shabir bahadras melech the el b'dot devarov. He says vav ilo shu shorsh elyon shel zer anpin. So you have to understand how it goes out. This Botzina de Kardanusa, Hagana Be'ima, which is hidden inside of Eden. Let's read it again. Teda Eich Yatza Al Yedei Botzina de Kardanusa, Hagana Be'ima, which is hidden inside of Ima. Now, he's taking the Botzina de Kardanusa and he's giving it a different definition. He says this is actually an element which is hidden inside of Ima. Adkan. Ba'ayin Sham Od, and it has to do with this letter Vav. Ba'amar Kan Od ki Gvuras de Das. Let's talk about that. The Ima, now. So Ima, let's say she has in her SIFRA, she has a Das. Nimshachim Acher Kach Mochin the Ima de Zer Anpin. So in that place, what into the Mochin of Arab Anpin are going to come through the middle line of Ima, but the left side of the middle line of Ima. And when it goes like that, it winds up covering up her opening. How? Because through that, we talk about this middle line of the Das of Ima. He kinesis yisod Ima b'rosh zer anpin. V'kumoshin is bar inyan zecha the el in perik aleph yisecha b'sod. This of the asa miftika the kolol shes. That's that metaphor again. Umakasiyah pischa ein sham. It's just like you putting a key in a lock opening. Ubebircha pasuk cholet the doide b'sharim. Reba hadras melech shabir v'zel l'shon l'gam b'sod zecha ramos the el b'mash am vav who romas the zer anpin. Cholech the doide the zer anpin who doidach b'shal malchus. He is really the beloved of malchus. V'cholet the misharim. He goes a straight line. His davigimo to make that yigud. Al yidecha b'gevuras the imach hanikroim butzu the kardanusa. Ki chom hagavuros, because the heat that comes from this gevura kodmin the orach zivog. It comes first to be aroused the zivog. We'll read this again in Metz Hashem. And it comes first like this. Smolo the tachas of Roshi. V'achakach v'yaminim b'chasadim tech b'tach b'keni. Umizvugim umizdavgim. V'zecha she'amar l'makasi pischa. That's the idea there. The nukvach b'zivugimo ad kan b'hina yesh kan bir noisef b'lasha the SIFRA d'tzniutagan. The makasi pischa. So we're getting over those ideas. What does it mean to be makasi pischa? The makasi pischa, the eilach of a bir b'chadras melech, the hainu kisoi pesach, the imach of a kan bir, the hainu kisoi pischa. Nukva. Okay, that's it, Rabbi. Have a good time. Bye-bye. So Mitzvah Shem will get a chance to look at that one again. This is Baruch Fleischman. You're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kola. We're in the deep spaces. Don't understand them all. Trying to put the pieces together.